What's up, everybody? Jackson Fuller here, along with Owen Hassell, and it's high school football playoff time. The long, winding regular season that felt like it might never end with a Friday night of football is behind us. We played on Friday last week, and we're going to have a pair of games this week for Friday night. Fortunately for us, as a newspaper, all four local teams that are playing in the first round are playing against each other, and that makes our life a lot easier, doesn't it, Owen?
It certainly does, and you wonder at how many teams could get into the postseason like we do every year, and you start breaking it down, who's going to make it, and who might be out. And at one point thought maybe Laney, West Brunswick could also make the playoffs, and just got cut off on that last Friday, and now we are where we are with 5 teams. Hoggard obviously having to bye in the first round. We'll play next Friday.
Yep, you said it right. Laney and West Brunswick are firmly on the bubble, and they just missed. But we've got 5 teams in the playoffs. Hoggard will have a first-round bye. But the 4 teams playing on Friday in the 3AA bracket, we've got number 6 New Hanover, and they're going to host number 11 Topsail, a rematch of what we just had last Friday night. And then in the 2 single A bracket, we've got number 10 Whiteville at number 7 Wallace Rose Hill. Owen, let's start at Legion Stadium. Our stringer Noah Thomas will be covering that game on Friday night. Topsail at New Hanover. You know, I know you weren't there last week, but do you think that there's any way that Topsail can shift the tide and make up a 38-14 deficit and turn that around and beat New Hanover this Friday?
Maybe that's a question for you, because you were at that game last week. I know the first challenge for the coaches of New Hanover is to keep the team focused on this week. After it's easy to think ahead. Well, just beat Topsail and won, not convincingly necessarily, but pulled away in the second half, got the job done. So, all right, what do you do differently? What does Topsail do differently? There's still some questions here. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Topsail could pull off a victory, and that's another reason why you'd like the kids to stay focused. At the same time, I hear from Coach, what about that second round? Who's could win that second round game? I'm like, you just asked me about staying focused. So it's hard. It's just, it is difficult, and people say, well, conference foes shouldn't play in the first round of the playoffs. But then they also say, well, we don't want to travel so far in the first round. You just can't have it so many different ways. It's going to have to come down to one thing or the other. And the state is now trying to pretty firmly say, at least in my estimation, don't worry about travel, or don't have travel problems. This is the way to keep it shorter distances.
Well, and the thing is, I think that it just happened to work out that way for Topsail and New Hanover. I mean, the seeding matched up regardless of their travel issues, but they're saying, if 2 conference foes are going to match up, that's perfectly fine with us. If you're going to have to travel a long way, hey, that's unfortunate, but we have to stick with our seeding requirements that we have.
And if you're the team that beat the other before, you're thinking, okay,
yeah.
Can't we just do it again? Which I know sometimes is easier said than done.
2 big keys for Topsail and New Hanover. Last week, New Hanover made a really big defensive adjustment at halftime, and that kind of sparked their second half shutout. And I talked to Coach Inman on the phone on Saturday when the brackets were released, and he said, hey, they made their adjustment. Now we've got a week to prepare and make our adjustment to come back at them with that. So how do these teams kind of go back and forth in a chess match between the coaching staff will be interesting. And of course, there's the health of Noah LaValle, who went down with an ankle injury. It looked pretty bad from the sideline. It was right in front of me. I mean, he looked to be in serious pain. But Coach Inman said he's day-to-day, so he could play Friday night. I think it's just going to be a matter of pain tolerance, because I know the junior would love to get a second shot at the Wildcats. And, of course, there's how does Topsail stop the New Hanover passing attack? Because that was the difference. I mean, the Wildcats really didn't get anything going on the ground, but they could throw the ball downfield, and short passes turned into long gains at will. So the Pirates, they've got a big mountain to climb, but it was 17-14 going into the half. They were right there. They had just scored 2 consecutive touchdown drives. I mean, they proved that over, a 2-quarter stretch, they can hang in there with them. Can they now bounce back on the road and do it over a 4-quarter stretch?
I was reading a tweet from Cody Wallace, the Topsail quarterback, where he didn't sound too down after the game. Yeah, disappointed the loss, but 9-2, culture changing, all these different terms. He's still big on that, and I think the team is right a lot around his leadership. You see that he's like a natural leader for this team. And I don't see a lot of negativity from that going into this week, going, oh my gosh, we got New Hanover again. Oh, they beat us last week. I think for Topsail, they're going, we can win this game. And like you said, we're right there. Now it's a chance to make your adjustments. This team isn't just Noah LaValle like it's been the last 2 years. We've discussed that. And Cody Wallace and Jonathan Ward and Hayden Walsh, there are other threats on this team.
Right. And, they have the other threats. They all have to play well, because on Friday night, they all took turns playing well, but none of them really put it together all at once. If they've got to all play well for 4 quarters in order to beat, the defending 3AA state champions. We haven't mentioned that yet, but New Hanover, it's been a long season for them. They're still the defending champs, and
Earl Smith doesn't want to mention that.
Well, we'll mention it.
New season, right?
Yeah. Then let's talk about the 2A game. That's where I'll be on Friday night. I'm really looking forward to getting down to Wallace/Teachee/Rose Hill for the number 10 Whiteville at number 7 Wallace Rose Hill. You've got 4 of the best offensive players in the area going to square off on Whiteville's side. Ty Moss, the senior quarterback, and Javante Davis, the junior running back. I was looking at the numbers today. Ty Moss has 30 touchdowns this season, 14 passing and 16 rushing. The guy just produces in all sorts of ways. And then on Wallace Rose Hill's side, Cameron Dalrymple has led them in rushing since game 1. But now they have this freshman named Kanye Roberts, who just has an incredible first name. And he has been kind of carrying the load the past couple weeks. And that's not an indictment on Dalrymple at all. It just shows, hey, they've got another guy that they can hand the ball off to, and he can score a touchdown from any position on the field. It's 2 of the great teams and programs in the area squaring off. I mean, just, when you look at that 2A bracket, how enticing is the entire bracket and this game to start things off?
Wow. And there's so much in this 2A bracket. There could be 4 or 5 legit teams from the East that go on to play for a state championship. You mentioned Kanye Roberts. Is he that next guy for Wallace Rose, or that next big-time back, like a Javante Williams, to the next 2 or 3 years really get Wallace Rose Hill fans excited? There's definitely potential there. As far as this game, I'm interested to see how far Wallace Rose Hill's defense has come since the start of the year. It looks like it's definitely made some improvements and shut down East Duplin when it counted in that game. So I think that's where it's always a difference for the defense, but for them this year, because of the early struggles, of course, playing like Havelock and some tough teams, let's give them credit as well. But yeah, overall, the 2A East bracket, wow, I don't know where to begin.
The winner of that game is going to have to go on the road and face South Granville, who's 11-0, and I mean, they always have great teams, and they kind of run through their competition up there, but 11-0 at this point of the season is 11-0, and there's a reason that they're undefeated. So whoever wins that game is going to have a stiff challenge ahead, but you've also got teams like South Columbus and Southwest Onslow on that side of the bracket. I mean, whoever gets out of this bottom half of the 2A East bracket, I mean, that in itself is going to feel like you made the state championship game, and you're still going to have one more game left to play against some of the other teams up top. Yeah, I agree. I think I think the quarterbacks are not going to play a huge role passing the football, but there is going to be a time on Friday night when both teams are in 3rd and long or 3rd and medium, and the quarterbacks are going to have to make a play with their arms to extend drives and give guys like Dalrymple and Javante Davis another opportunity to run the ball. And whichever quarterback can make those drive extending throws, I think that's going to be a huge factor in whoever comes out of the game. I think when you look at let's talk about Hoggard a little bit. I know they're on bye, but they're going to be playing in the 4AA. I mean, when you look at that bracket, do you think that they can maybe pull off a state championship run, or is it something where we look at it like last year where, hey, there might be a cap to what they do, but they can still go very, very far?
It could end a lot like last year's playoff run for Hoggard, where you know who the top seed is, of course.
Yeah.
Last year, Scotland for them, and then this year it's Wake Forest, and Wake Forest has been to the Promised Land, won state championships, know what to do in those situations. Scotland, obviously, we know Scotland's tradition but Hoggard going to Scotland and doing what it did. I know that's last year, and Josh Jones is gone and all, but I would like to think some of that is in the minds of the kids this year, going, hey, we can go anywhere and compete against anybody right there.
Right.
However, last week against Laney, there are some things to work on. And fortunately, you get the bye to work on that. And I think that part of it was maybe Hoggard looking past Laney, even though no one's going to admit that, of course, because you already had the conference title wrapped up. The other part is I keep giving credit to Laney's defense this year. Laney's defense might have been the second best defense in the Mid-Eastern Conference.
I honestly don't think you can argue that. I think they've proven that they have the second best defense in the conference over the course of the schedule and what they were able to do to the likes of Hoggard and New Hanover.
Yeah, so if you're Hoggard, good time to reevaluate and say, okay, what did we do wrong? And Craig Underwood said it best, needed a game like this. Needed a game like this that every good team has a game during the season, no matter how good they are, they struggle. They just struggle. But good teams find a way to win. And when they needed that game-winning drive, Gabe Johnson converted some third downs, and you had some Jordan Rickey, and you had guys who did what they needed to do in the crunch time to win, and then Scott Looney with the big-time fumble recovery to win it.
I think, look at last year, the team that won a state championship. We had two teams win a state championship from this region, and one of them, New Hanover, got killed in their last game of the regular season. And that was a motivation. It was a reality check, and it kind of locked them back in heading into the state tournament. Who's to say that can't happen for Hoggard, and maybe the close game against Laney will be the best thing for them.
Let's say Hoggard lost to Laney. I'm not quite sure they'd have been a top 4 seed.
It would have been really interesting.
They might be playing in the first round Friday, which might have also been a blessing in disguise. Who knows? But on the other hand, you get this extra time to look and evaluate and say, okay, what did we do wrong here? And Gabe Johnson with some quick decisions. He threw a pick 6 as well. Now you can work on those things and the kids can see it. Sometimes with the kids, you can tell them all the time that you got to work on this, you got to work on that. But if they're winning so much, doesn't really hit you until you had some adversity. So they had some adversity.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. We're going to have plenty of coverage Friday night, Saturday morning, and in Sunday's paper on the 2 high school football games this Friday night. Reminder, Topsail at New Hanover. Follow Noah Thomas on Twitter for updates at NoahILM. I will be in Wallace for the Wallace, Rose Hill, and Whiteville game. Follow along at Star News Varsity. I hope everyone has a great rest of the week and enjoys the first action of high school football.